Attack! The police officer shouted. Tom watched his disabled daughter Lily fall from her wheelchair as the big police dog jumped on her. Blood was everywhere. Lily's service dog Max tried to save her but got hurt too. The bad cop was smiling. He picked the wrong family to mess with. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Sergeant Tom Rodriguez looked up in horror as the massive canine police dog named Rex launched himself at his 16-year-old daughter Lily, who sat helplessly in her wheelchair. The 120-pound German Shepherd hit her like a missile, sending her chair tumbling and throwing her onto the hard concrete of their driveway. "Lily!" Tom screamed, running from his own patrol car where he'd been getting ready for his night shift. Max, Lily's golden retriever service dog, threw himself between the attacked dog and his fallen girl without hesitation. Rex's massive jaws clamped down on Max's shoulder, and both dogs went down in a snarling, bloody mess. Lily lay on the ground, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead where she'd hit the concrete. Her left arm was twisted at an ugly angle. She was crying and trying to crawl toward Max, who was yelping in pain but still trying to protect her. "Brutus, heel!" Karen finally called, standing 20 feet away with a satisfied smirk on her face. Tom reached his daughter just as she tried to sit up. "Don't move, baby. Daddy's here. You're going to be okay." "Is Max hurt? Is he dying?" Lily sobbed, her face pale with shock and pain. Tom looked at Karen Mitchell, the new HOA president who had made their lives hell for 3 weeks straight. The tall, sharp-faced woman stood there watching his injured daughter with cold satisfaction. "Maybe now you'll keep that mutt under control," Karen said calmly, as if she hadn't just ordered a dog attack on a disabled teenager. Something snapped inside Tom. 20 years as a police officer, 20 years of staying calm under pressure, 20 years of following the rules, all of it disappeared in that moment. "You just tried to murder my daughter," Tom said, his voice deadly quiet as he stood up slowly. Karen's smirk faltered slightly. "I was just teaching her some respect, Dash." "No." Tom stepped toward her, and for the first time Karen looked nervous. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. You messed with my family. And I'm going to destroy you for it." 3 weeks before the attack, Tom had found the first orange violation notice, taped to his front door. Karen Mitchell had just been elected HOA president, and she was already targeting his family. Wheelchair ramp violates neighborhood aesthetic standards. Service dog creates noise disturbance. Flowers exceed approved color brightness levels. Tom had crumpled the ridiculous notice in his fist. Since the car accident 3 years ago that left Lily paralyzed from the waist down, their whole world had changed. The ramp, the service dog, the modified van in their driveway. Everything Karen was targeting was essential for Lily's independence and happiness. But Karen Mitchell wasn't just targeting the Rodriguez family. She was waging war on the entire neighborhood. Mrs. Sarah Chin, their elderly neighbor, got fined for her garden gnomes. "Culturally inappropriate decorations," Karen had written, even though Sarah had displayed those gnomes for 15 years. Jim Walker, a military veteran, was fined for flying his American flag. Too large for neighborhood standards, despite him serving 2 tours in Afghanistan for that flag. Maria Santos, a single mother working 2 jobs, received daily fines she couldn't afford for tiny violations like having her garbage can visible from the street. Young Bobby Chin, Sarah's teenage grandson, was threatened with arrest for skateboarding on public sidewalks. Karen Mitchell was a serial neighborhood destroyer. Tom had run a background check and discovered she'd done this before. Phoenix, Denver, always the same pattern. Get elected to HOA leadership, target vulnerable people, abuse power until someone stopped her. But nobody had ever stopped her before. Until now. Back in the present moment, neighbors were pouring out of their houses. Sarah Chin, Jim Walker, Maria Santos, and the Murphy family all witnessed Karen's attack on Lily. Emma Murphy, the teenage daughter, was recording everything on her phone. "Someone call 911. Tom shouted as he knelt beside Lily, checking her injuries. Her forehead was bleeding and her arm was definitely broken. "Already on it." Jim Walker called back, his phone pressed to his ear. Max limped over to them, blood matting his golden fur, but still trying to lick Lily's face to comfort her. The brave dog had saved his girl's life and nearly died doing it. Officer Jake Morrison stood there watching the chaos he'd created with cold satisfaction. He was a corrupt cop who worked with Karen Mitchell, the new HOA president who had been terrorizing the neighborhood. "Maybe now you'll control that mutt," Morrison said to Tom, his police uniform making his crime even more disgusting. "You ordered a K9 dog to attack my disabled daughter," Tom said, standing slowly. "You're supposed to be a police officer. I was just following HOA President Karen's orders. No. Tom's voice was deadly calm. You just committed assault with a deadly weapon on a disabled minor. You're going to prison for this and you'll lose your badge. Morrison laughed nervously. Prison? I'm a cop just like you. You can't touch me. Tom smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Corrupt cops who attack children? The department destroys cops like you. You just ended your career and your freedom. The ambulance arrived within minutes, followed by 2 police cars. Tom's partner, Detective Lisa Monroe, was in the first car. She took one look at the scene and immediately understood what had happened. Tom, what do you need? Lisa asked quietly. Full investigation. I want this by the book. I want her to pay for every second of what she put Lily through. As the paramedics loaded Lily into the ambulance, she grabbed Tom's hand. Daddy, is Karen going to hurt other kids? Tom squeezed her hand gently. No, sweetheart. Daddy's going to make sure she never hurts anyone again. At the hospital, Dr. Amanda Foster delivered the damage report. Lily had a concussion, 6 stitches in her forehead, and a broken arm that would need a cast for 8 weeks. She's lucky, Dr. Foster told Tom quietly. A dog that size could have killed her. If her service dog hadn't intervened. Tom nodded grimly. At the emergency vet clinic, Max was getting surgery on his shoulder. The brave golden retriever had 3 deep puncture wounds and would need weeks of recovery. Back at the police station, Tom's captain, Mike Patterson, was furious when he saw Emma's video. She ordered a dog to attack a disabled kid? Mike's face was red with anger. Tom, I've got 3 daughters. If someone did that to one of them, I'd be in jail for murder. I want to handle this right, Cap. By the book. I want her to pay for every second of what she put Lily through. What do you need? Full investigation. Detective Monroe is led since I'm too close. Animal control involved. DA's office consulted on charges. Done. What else? Tom's smile was cold. I want to dig into Karen Mitchell's life. This isn't her first time. The investigation moved fast and Tom was right. Karen's history was a gold mine of evidence. In Phoenix, she'd been HOA president before being removed for harassment. She targeted a veteran with PTSD, trying to have his service dog removed. She'd fined an elderly woman into foreclosure. In Denver before that, similar stories. Financial irregularities too, she'd been skimming HOA funds everywhere she went. She's a serial neighborhood predator, Lisa Monroe told him. And Tom, I found bank records. She's been stealing money from every HOA she's led. Tom called his lawyer friend, David Kim, who specialized in civil rights cases. David watched Emma's video and whistled low. Tom, this isn't just assault. This is a federal hate crime. She targeted Lily because of her disability. We can put her away for years. What about civil court? We're going to own her house when this is over. Assault on a disabled minor, civil rights violations, emotional distress. I'm asking for $2 million in damages. Tom's first move was to call an emergency HOA meeting. Word about the attack had spread like wildfire, and the community center was packed with angry neighbors who had never attended a meeting before. Karen sat at the head table with her supporter Janet Phillips and her weak husband Robert, clearly expecting to control the meeting as usual. She'd completely underestimated how furious the neighborhood was. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence in Karen Mitchell as HOA president, Tom announced, standing at the back of the room. You can't do that. Karen snapped, banging her gavel. I was elected. Actually, I can, Tom replied calmly. Article 7 of the HOA bylaws allows for removal of officers for misconduct. And ordering a dog to attack a disabled teenager definitely qualifies. The room erupted in angry voices. Karen banged her gavel frantically, but nobody was listening to her anymore. Tom connected his laptop to the projector. Let's watch the video and let everyone decide for themselves. Emma's recording played on the big screen. The room fell completely silent as they watched Karen unleash Brutus and command him to attack. Gasps echoed through the crowd when Lily fell, and several people started crying when they saw Max bleeding while trying to protect her. My God, whispered Mrs. Murphy. She tried to murder that child. When the video ended, Tom wasn't finished. He'd prepared a complete presentation about Karen's history, photos of her previous neighborhoods, police reports, testimony from her former victims. In Phoenix, she drove the Patterson family into foreclosure with illegal fines, Tom explained. In Denver, she had Mr. Garcia's PTSD service dog taken away by lying to animal control. She's been stealing HOA money everywhere she goes. Every place she moves, she finds vulnerable people and destroys their lives for entertainment. Sarah Chin stood up shakily. I move to remove Karen Mitchell as president immediately. Seconded, shouted Jim Walker. Thirded, called Maria Santos. The vote was unanimous except for Janet Phillips and Robert Mitchell. Karen was officially removed as HOA president. I also move to ban Karen Mitchell from any future leadership positions, Tom continued. That vote was also unanimous. Karen tried to speak, but the crowd shouted her down with boos and angry voices. She finally stormed out, screaming threats about lawsuits that nobody believed or cared about anymore. Jim Walker was elected interim president. His first official act was to rescind all of Karen's ridiculous fines and illegal rules. Tom's first move was to call an emergency HOA meeting. As a homeowner, he had the right to demand one, and Karen couldn't refuse without looking weak. The community center was packed. Word had spread about the attack, and neighbors who had never attended a meeting before showed up. Tom had spent days talking to people, gathering stories, building alliances. Karen sat at the head table with Janet Phillips and Robert Mitchell, clearly expecting to control the meeting as usual. She'd underestimated how angry the neighborhood was. Tom stood up first. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence in Karen Mitchell as HOA president. You can't do that. Karen snapped. I was elected. Actually, I can, Tom replied calmly. Article 7 of the HOA bylaws allows for removal of officers for misconduct. And attempted murder qualifies as misconduct. The room erupted. Karen banged her gavel frantically. That's slander. I never attempted murder. Tom pulled out a laptop and connected it to the projector. Let's watch the video and let everyone decide. Emma's recording played on the big screen. The room fell silent as they watched Karen unhook Brutus's leash and command him to attack. Gasps echoed when Lily fell, and several people started crying when they saw Max trying to protect her while bleeding. My God, whispered Mrs. Murphy. She tried to kill that child. When the video ended, Tom stood again. This is who you elected to lead our community. A woman who orders dogs to attack disabled teenagers. But this isn't the first time. Tom had prepared a presentation. Photos of Karen's previous neighborhoods, copies of police reports, testimony from her former victims. The story painted a clear picture of a serial abuser who moved from place to place, destroying communities. In Phoenix, she drove the Patterson family into foreclosure with illegal fines, Tom explained. In Denver, she had Mr. Garcia's PTSD service dog taken away by lying to animal control. Every place she goes, she finds vulnerable people and destroys their lives for fun. Sarah Chin stood up. I move to remove Karen Mitchell as president immediately. Seconded, called out Jim Walker. Thirded, shouted Maria Santos. The vote was unanimous except for Janet Phillips and Robert Mitchell. Karen was officially removed as HOA president, effective immediately. But Tom wasn't done. I also moved to ban Karen Mitchell from any future leadership positions in this HOA. That vote was also unanimous. Karen tried to speak, but the crowd shouted her down. She finally stormed out, screaming threats about lawsuits, but nobody cared anymore. Her power was broken. The neighbors elected Jim Walker as interim president. His first act was to rescind all of Karen's ridiculous fines and rules. The criminal case moved quickly. Karen was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, the dog, child endangerment, and animal cruelty. The federal prosecutor added civil rights violations and disability discrimination charges. Karen hired an expensive lawyer, Richard Steinberg, who tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding. But Emma's video made that impossible. You could clearly hear Karen say, "Get her," and see her deliberately unleash the dog. At the preliminary hearing, Lily testified. Tom was proud of how brave his daughter was as she described the attack. I was just sitting there with Max, Lily said clearly. I wasn't doing anything wrong. She told her dog to attack me, and when I fell and got hurt, she smiled about it. The judge, Patricia Williams, was visibly angry as she watched the video. Ms. Mitchell, this is one of the most disturbing cases I've seen in 20 years on the bench. You deliberately weaponized a large dog against a disabled child. Bail is set at $50,000. Karen's face went white. She'd expected a slap on the wrist, not serious consequences. The civil case was even better. David Kim filed for $2 million in damages, claiming permanent emotional trauma, medical expenses, and violation of Lily's civil rights. Karen's lawyers tried to settle quickly, but Tom refused. I want her in court, under oath, explaining to a jury why she tried to murder my daughter. The trial was a media sensation. Local news covered it daily, painting Karen as a monster who attacked children. Her husband Robert finally found some courage and filed for divorce, testifying against her in exchange for immunity. She was obsessed with control, Robert testified. She would spend hours planning ways to hurt neighbors she didn't like. She called them campaigns, like it was a war. The jury deliberated for just 2 hours. They found Karen guilty on all criminal charges and awarded Tom's family $1.8 million in civil damages. Karen was sentenced to 3 years in prison with 2 years probation after release. Brutus was euthanized by court order after being deemed dangerous. Karen was also banned from serving on any HOA board for life. 6 months later, Tom sat on his front porch watching Lily play with Max in the yard. The golden retriever had made a full recovery and was back to his happy, protective self. Lily's physical scars had healed, though she still had nightmares sometimes. The insurance money from Karen's lawsuit was in a trust fund for Lily's college and future needs. Tom had donated $100,000 to the local animal shelter in Max's name, and another $50,000 to a disability rights organization. Karen's house had been sold to pay her legal debts and the judgment. The new owners, the Jackson family, had 2 young children and were already popular in the neighborhood. Jim Walker had been elected permanent HOA president and was doing a great job. He'd instituted new rules protecting residents from harassment and had set up a fund to help neighbors who couldn't afford home repairs. "Dad," Lily said, rolling her wheelchair up the ramp. "Emma just texted me. She won that student journalism award for her story about the trial." Tom smiled. Emma Murphy had written an article for her school newspaper about the importance of standing up to bullies. It had been picked up by the local paper and had helped turn public opinion completely against Karen. "That's great, sweetheart. She deserves it." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think Karen learned her lesson? Do you think she'll stop hurting people?" Tom considered the question seriously. "I think she learned that actions have consequences. Whether she actually changes as a person, that's up to her. But she'll never have the power to hurt people like she hurt us again." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "Good. Nobody should have to go through what we did." "No, they shouldn't. But you know what I learned, Lily?" "What?" "That when bad people try to hurt good people, the community can come together and stop them. Mrs. Chin, Mr. Walker, the Murphys, Maria, they all stood up for us when it mattered. And you stood up for all of us," Lily pointed out. Tom hugged his daughter. "That's what dads do, sweetheart. We protect our families." As the sun set over their peaceful neighborhood, Tom felt something he hadn't felt in months: complete satisfaction. Karen Mitchell had tried to destroy their lives, but instead, she destroyed her own. The neighborhood was stronger, his daughter was safer, and justice had been served perfectly. Sometimes Tom thought the good guys really do win. Tom received a letter at the police station on a Tuesday morning. The return address made him smile: Arizona State Women's Correctional Facility. Inside was a handwritten note from Karen Mitchell. "Sergeant Rodriguez, I am writing to inform you that I have been denied parole. My request for early release was rejected after the parole board reviewed letters from my victims, including your daughter. I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did was wrong. I am getting therapy and anger management counseling. I hope someday I can make amends. Sincerely, Karen Mitchell." Tom crumpled the letter and threw it in the trash. Then he picked up his phone and called home. "Hey Lily. How was school?" "Great, Dad. Max and I are helping train a new service dog puppy at the shelter today. His name is Buddy and he's adorable." Tom smiled. While Karen was sitting in a cell thinking about her mistakes, Lily was out in the world making it a better place. That was the real victory. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. I'll see you at dinner. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, Lily. More than you'll ever know." Tom hung up and got back to work, protecting and serving his community. Some battles were worth fighting and some victories were worth savoring. Justice, he had learned, was indeed sweet.